So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our presenter tonight, Chief Bisa.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. I don't think I need this, right?
Actually, you do, for the recording.
Okay, I'm going to put it on here, and I'll put it close to me, but
All right, that works.
I really don't like using a microphone, but for you, Don.
Oh, thank you, I appreciate that.
I will. Good evening, everyone. My name is Bisa, and I am the Chief of Police here at the Richmond Police Department. For those that don't know me, I've been with the department for 27 years. Started off as a police officer and worked my way up through the ranks to the rank of chief, which I've been now for the last 5 years. So I'm going to give you some year-over-year stats for last year, and then I know he said the beat officer is on a call, but I think that beat officer is filling in for this beat tonight because the actual beat officer called in sick. So I'll try to give you a few stats from last month while I'm at it. What I was able to pull once I found out the beat officer called in sick. So first of all, I want to talk about some of the goals for our department for the next year. So I try to set goals for each year. For 2025 and for the last actually 2 years, our number one priority has been recruiting and retention. We've had a shortage of officers for several years now, which means that we've been having to cut our services to the community, unfortunately. Last year, we were able to hire 21 officers, which is good, but we lost 13 officers, so it's not a net gain of 21. And of those 21 officers, there's still a lot of them that are in training, so we haven't realized the full impact of having more officers. Our priority is patrol. That means that we want to make sure that we have an officer for each beat 24/7. And so a majority of our staff is in patrol. All of our units are short-staffed. We actually don't have many units. This year, we were able to bring back our traffic unit. That's just one sergeant and one officer. That's our entire traffic unit. That traffic unit used to be 7 officers and 2 sergeants. We want to work our way back up there, but it's going to be a little while before we get there. So we're working really hard at recruiting and retention. As a matter of fact, we're going to be going to City Council asking for, we're doing a presentation to do a recruitment bonus. We're having a challenge with a lot of different departments around here that are recruiting, and we're all recruiting for the same people. And many of the departments are offering bonuses for lateral officers. It's quicker to get a lateral officer in a car and in service, out of training, than it is for us to hire somebody that hasn't been in the field. And while we love to hire new entry-level candidates, we have to put them through the academy, and then it really takes about a whole 18 months from the hiring process through the academy and training before they're off as a solo beat officer. A lateral officer will only take maybe about 6 months compared to entry level. So we're I don't want to say we're not focused on entry level, because I think that there is a benefit in also bringing brand new police officers on. That's how we've been able to hire a lot of people from our community, is hiring entry level, but we want to focus on some lateral officers. So we're going to be taking a proposal to City Council for a recruiting bonus. Some other departments around here, Fremont's offering $100,000 for lateral officers to come to their department. That's not $100,000 up front. It's broken up into like 5 years or something, like 15,000 when you get hired, 15,000 when you make it through the training program, 15,000 when you make it through your first year. So there's...
No, I was wondering if you could let the audience know what a lateral officer is.
So a lateral officer is an officer, for our intents and purposes, has been an officer for at least 3 years in another location. So they've been trained, they've gone through the academy. So Fremont, I think, is the highest, offering $100,000. Alameda is offering $80,000. think Berkeley's offering like 40,000, so there's a lot of different places around here that are offering these bonuses. We have not offered anything. Antioch's offering a bonus, and if you hear about what's going on in Antioch, I can't imagine who would want to be a police officer in Antioch, but they're almost a full staff now because they're offering bonuses. So we're going to try the same thing. We also want to be able to retain the officers that we have working. And I shouldn't just say officers, dispatchers too, because it's very hard to hire dispatchers. So officers and dispatchers want to recruit laterals, retain the officers we have. So we're going to City Council with a proposal for these retention and recruiting bonuses. So number one priority, recruiting and retention. Of course, we always want to focus on crime. And last year, crime was down by 0.5%. It was down. It was down. I'll take it. It's not rising. But when we say that we're focusing on felony crimes, Part 1 crimes, which are felony crimes. Those things, those stats and the stats that we look at, the stats that everybody talks about when they're talking about, statistical data, it does not include quality of life issues. And unfortunately, those quality of life issues impact all of us on a day-to-day basis. And so, while we're glad to see a drop in Part 1 crimes, I want to be able to focus on quality of life issues because that's what I get the most complaints about. Speeding vehicles, illegal dumping, drug dealing in neighborhoods, noise complaints, those things that irritate your quality of life, that make you not have peace in your neighborhood. For me, I live here in the city. My quality of life issue is my neighbor behind me has a dog that does not stop barking. That dog barks. If we are in the backyard, that dog will bark the entire time we're in the backyard. That's a quality of life issue for me. And right now, there's not much we can do about it because it's a Richmond Municipal Code section that we would use to cite those people for that noise nuisance. And for quite some time now, we have not had a city prosecutor to enforce our Richmond Municipal Code sections. Just today, I had a meeting with the city attorney's office and a contract attorney who's going to start enforcing some of those quality of life issue citations. So before, for the last, I won't tell you how many years, we haven't really been enforcing the RMC sections because I couldn't in good conscience tell my officers go out and write a citation for an RMC section when I knew that citation wasn't going to go anywhere. Now, after our meeting today, and once the contract hopefully gets passed by City Council, we'll do some training with our department, and officers can start enforcing the RMC section and get some of those quality of life issues under control again. So I'm happy about that. That's another goal of ours. And then going back to kind of both of those issues, crime and quality of life, recruiting and retention, all of it's kind of wrapped up in bringing back some units to our department. One of the reasons why we've had a retention problem is because there's really not a lot of movement for our officers anymore. So we used to be a full-service police department where officers have the ability, after working patrol for several years, they can go to an assignment in investigations and be a detective. They can work our violence suppression unit, which is more high-paced, going after people with guns and stuff like that. There was our traffic unit, DUI enforcement. We had a foot and bike patrol where they walked 23rd Street, walked McDonald Avenue, rode bikes, got to know the business districts. All of these specialty assignments we've had to cut. We have none of them anymore. We have gang and parole unit, narcotics unit. We don't even have a narcotics unit. So a lot of people came to our department because they knew that they could get a lot of experience in all of these different areas. And for the last 5 years, close to 5 years now, we haven't had those units. So that's contributed to our retention problem. So again, the focus on our goals, hopefully bringing back a traffic unit, bringing back a violence suppression unit, those are the priorities moving into 2025 and for the next 3 years. I'll move into some of the statistical data for last year. Like I said, crime was down. Actually, it was an overall decrease of 0.25%. It's a 7% increase in violent crime, unfortunately, where we're seeing a lot increase in robberies specifically, but a decrease in property crimes of 3%. And now you're probably saying that math doesn't math. That math ain't mathing, right? If there's a 7% increase in violent crime and 3% decrease in property crime, that's because the number of property crimes, there's more property crimes than there is violent crimes, and so it evens out to a 0.25 decrease in crime overall. Let's see. And just some more highlights. Last year we made 2,084 arrests. 1,100 of them, around 1,100 of them were felony arrests, and 955 were misdemeanor arrests. We made 198 DUI arrests, and that's without having a traffic unit. And that's because we have a lot of traffic collisions within our city that result in DUI arrests. You know, unfortunately, we have higher DUI rate per capita than most other cities. 258 firearms were recovered last year. Our parking enforcement unit totaled 1,938 vehicles and red tagged 2,523 vehicles. We had 11 fatal traffic collisions last year, and again, without a traffic unit, our beat officers are having to take on some of the responsibility of those investigations. We hosted 9 human trafficking special operations, and there were 11 homicides last year. That's 3 more than we had in 2023. We had 8 in 2023. 8 was the record low number. We hadn't had a number that low in over 50 years. It's the lowest that we've had on record. The second lowest number that we've had on record is 11. We had 11 a few years ago, 2014 I think it was, and then last year we ended with 11. To me, 8's too many, 11's too many, but we're glad to have the numbers that we do now, as opposed to having the numbers that we had back in the early 2000s with 50 homicides. So we're making some progress in that area. Our communications center received a total of 236,161 calls last year. It's a lot of phone calls to answer. About 150 of them were 911 calls. 19,000 of them were for the fire department, and they did emergency medical dispatching for about 13,600 of them. And that's important because Richmond does not have, besides Kaiser, does not have a hospital, and so the ability for our dispatchers to do emergency medical dispatching is important. Average ring time is 8 seconds, and I know when you call, sometimes that 8 seconds can seem like a long time, but that's an average call time for them to answer the call, not maybe your specific encounter. So like I said, we hired 21 officers in 2024. We still have 22 sworn vacancies, and we have 21 professional staff vacancies. So again, we're working really hard to get those vacancies filled. If you know somebody that's interested in the field of law enforcement, it doesn't have to be for a police officer position. We have a lot of professional staff positions available also. And I'll stop there. I'll give you a little bit of the data that I was able to pull for the Hilltop Fairmede area for the month of December. These are just more of crime trends, not a full picture of everything that's happened, but we're seeing a trend with stolen vehicles in Bella Vista. There were 4 of them stolen out of Bella Vista in the month of December. There was a shooting in Bella Vista. Luckily, nobody was hit. We did have information of the vehicle, and the vehicle was stopped after, I think, a police chase in Oakland, and the suspect was arrested there. There was a shooting at the extended stay, and we do have a suspect in custody in that instance. And there was a carjacking on Erla Way, but the victim and the suspect knew each other. With that, I'll take questions.
Got a mic over here.
We got Mr. Gosney.
Mr. Gosney, yeah, thank you very much. Two quick questions. Do you have a response time for the non-emergency calls? And then second, when considering all of the bonuses being paid by everybody else, how do we keep our people from quitting and going there just to get the bonus?
So that's the problem. We've had a number of officers. Since 2020, and going into 2021 and 2022, we've had a record number of officers leaving our department to work in other departments. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Bonuses help them make that decision. But I truly believe that if you provide a work environment that officers feel supported, they can go out, they have the resources to go out and do their job, morale is good, then I don't think that people, even with some of those enticements of money, will leave our department. And so that's what I really worked hard on over the last few years is the culture of our department, to be able to retain officers. And for the last 2 years, we've been able to retain more officers than we lost, which was a flip from years before.
How about the non-emergency response time? You have an answer on that one?
So I don't have the number of
Okay.
the response times.
Do we have any other questions before we get to going back there? There's been statements made that the reason crime is down is gentrification is one of the reasons that it may be down, but you can't quantify that. But there are areas that are being gentrified, and then the fact that a lot of people are not calling the police department for catalytic converters and things of that nature. So I don't know how you can do the calculations on who's not calling and why they're not calling, but they're not calling because they believe that the police won't show up. So I don't know how you'd like to respond to that.
Sure. So I should have put a caveat on crime is down because we know that people don't call the police for a lot of things anymore. Some of the lower misdemeanor things. I do believe that if somebody's assaulted, they're going to call us. And that's why we see the violent crime number where it is. But for a lot of the property crimes, we know people aren't calling us. And we know that because, we know that they're not always reporting. We know that because sometimes we get calls to our dispatch center, and if it's a burglary of your vehicle or a catalytic converter stolen or something like that, then we refer a lot of those calls to online reporting. And we know based on the referrals to online reporting compared to the amount of reports that we have on online reporting, they don't match. So we know that some people just say, well, forget it, I'm not even going to report it.
How many officers do we have in the city?
So currently we have 122 officers. However, we have 8 of those officers are in field training. We probably have another 7 or 8 that are off on some types, actually 7 or 8 that are off on injury leave. We have 1 pregnant officer, so she's inside. And we have 3 officers that are off on administrative leave. And that 122 number, if you minus the ones in training, the 8 in training, the 7 or 8 that are on injury leave, and the 3 that are on admin leave, the rest of that number is from me all the way down to the officers. So that includes management.
Okay, Chief French, I have 2 questions. One, are you going to bring back the coffee with the Cosby? Because I really enjoyed that. It was wonderful. And the second thing is, you mentioned about the the traffic unit, because I live on Park Plaza and we've had concerns of cars being continue to speed along right near King Elementary. So you going to bring back the traffic unit?
That's one of the priorities once we get more staff.
And then the other question, it just dawned on me. So are y'all going to, I remember y'all used to do like the sting operation down on 23rd Street where the prostitution has resumed again. So I was wondering, are y'all going to start doing that again?
We try to have at least one human trafficking operation per month. Those we have to do on overtime. We don't have a unit that we used to have to do those operations. So we get detectives on overtime to conduct those operations in the evening hours.
So there was recently a vote 4-3 on the city council in favor of some police equipment. Can you tell the audience what that entailed?
Sure. On Tuesday night, I went to City Council asking them for additional funds to put up more cameras around the city. Cameras, license plate reader cameras, to catch stolen vehicles and other vehicles that are involved in other crimes, as well as pan-tilt zoom cameras. So one of the things we're really paying attention to are some of the things that are happening nationwide, most recently on New Year's Eve and our New Year's Day in New Orleans, where you have the vehicle that went through the Bourbon Street. And we're paying attention to this because we have a lot of festivals and events in the city, and we are concerned that something like this can happen here. And so one of the items that I asked for was a Flock trailer. So Flock is the company that provides our camera system, license plate reader cameras, and pan-tilt zoom. The pan-tilt zooms are cameras that we can maneuver and look down in certain areas. So one of the things I asked for was a trailer that we can put up to monitor things that are happening, up and down the street for special events. We could move this trailer to various areas like the marina when we have the 3rd of July fireworks, 23rd Street for Cinco de Mayo, Nickel Park for Juneteenth, just different festivals and stuff like that. So that was one of the asks. And then we need some cameras around some city facilities because gas is getting stolen from city vehicles and catalytic converters stolen and stuff like that. So the rest of the funds for cameras for those city departments. I got really nervous because so that item was on the consent calendar, which means that the council members can leave it on consent and pass it. Well, one of the council members pulled it off of the consent calendar. They wanted to have a discussion about it. Once we did, then I got several no votes, which made me very concerned. Luckily, I got 4 yes votes, so it did pass, and we'll be able to get the equipment. One of the other equipment pieces was a drone. So we use drones for a myriad of things, but it's really an officer safety tool, especially being short-staffed. When a suspect that we're chasing is running into a backyard, we could put a drone up to look for him instead of running behind him and getting into a fight or something like that. When somebody is in a home and they don't want to come out, instead of us forcing our way in, we can send a drone in. We can communicate with them, do some crisis negotiations with it. So there's a lot of different uses for that piece of equipment. And it can respond to, so this particular drone as a first responder can respond to different locations before we can. They could get to areas around the city to give us a picture of what's actually going on when we get a call for service. So if somebody calls and says, there's a guy on his roof shooting a gun off, we could send a drone out to give us a clear picture of what's going on in real time as we respond.
We have a question back here.
I just want to say how much I appreciate what the department has been accomplishing with such limited resources. And I want to know what we can do as a community to support your work.
Thank you. That's a great question. I think it's really important that you pay attention to what the leaders in the city are doing, specifically City Council. I'm trying to do everything I can with the resources that I have. But it's a challenge, and there are things that I think you could pay attention to in City Council and support us in that way when we're asking for different resources. For example, last Tuesday night, I'm asking for these things, these tools that will help us to fight crime, especially since we're short-staffed, and almost, nearly half the council says no. And it's like, can't you see the benefit of it? And so I'm not asking you to go against your beliefs if you don't believe in the equipment, but if there are things that you see that, the police department's trying to do and that you do support, we need people to call into council, because there's plenty of people on the other side that call in, against us on a constant basis, and we need supporters to call in too. The council needs to hear, the council makes a direction, and I'm pointing to Caesar because Councilmember Zepeda.
Vice Mayor.
Vice Mayor Zepeda.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you giving us kudos for what we are doing. This morning, we served a search warrant at 5 different locations based on a beat officer taking the initiative to do additional follow-up on his, on overtime, because everything can't be done while he's also working a beat. And we were able to take, I think, 6 guns, a ton of dope, not just marijuana, but cocaine, promethazine, which is cough syrup with codeine. That's a big thing that a lot of young people use. Mushrooms, all kinds of dope from these search warrants that we did this morning. And it's not easy to do operations like that just based on the staffing that we have.
Before I get to this question, I just wanted to reiterate we have a new person in the White House. We live in a sanctuary city, and there are concerns about license plate readers and the ICE getting that information. Can you tell everybody here what your thoughts are on that?
Sure. We are a sanctuary city. We do not share information. Even with the license plate readers, we are the holders of that information, and it only captures license plates. It doesn't capture faces. It doesn't capture, people's names or anything like that. And that information, unless it's linked to a particular investigation, is deleted after 30 days. Besides that, we are committed to making sure that everybody in our city feels safe, whether you're documented or not. We're not going to share information that can be used against you. SB 54 is a Senate bill several years ago with the state of California that prohibits any California law enforcement agency from engaging in immigration enforcement in the state of California as a whole. Now, that does not mean that federal agencies will not come and do enforcement in our city. What it means is we're not going to help them. We're not going to provide them information. We're just not going to participate in any way.
So there's been an agenda item on the city council agenda for quite some time. It goes on, then gets pulled, LexisNexis.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that and how important it is?
Sure. It's bad timing for this. We did ask for an exemption I pulled the item because I realized that, 1, it is bad timing, and 2, we need to do a little bit more research. So LexisNexis is a large company, and recently they've been buying smaller companies. We've been doing business with some of the smaller companies that LexisNexis is purchasing. Now, some of the services that we use these companies for is, 1, online reporting. There was over 3,000 online reports done last year. And so one of the companies that we used was recently, the company that we used to do online reporting was bought by LexisNexis. Now we're trying to figure out, are there any other solutions that we can use for online reporting before we ask for a waiver to use them? And before we do that, we want to make sure that LexisNexis is not going to share whatever data that goes into that with any federal agencies that can be used against our residents. Another service that was purchased was our collision reports. If you get in a traffic collision, the software we use has been purchased by LexisNexis. Again, we want to make sure that information from those traffic reports won't be shared with any federal agencies. forgetting the name, but if somebody goes missing or if we're looking for somebody, we can send these flyers called track flyers to other law enforcement agencies. And they might have a picture of the person and the information, why we're looking for this person. They could be, somebody that's missing that we're looking for. And we send these to other law enforcement agencies. And that company is now owned by Nexus. So we're figuring out, is there another viable solution? So these are companies that we've been using that always sign or were in compliance with our sanctuary city policy. And now, because LexisNexis won't sign our sanctuary city policy, we're seeing if there's other vendors that we can go to.
So can you tell us again how many beat officers we have per shift for Richmond, which is 52 square miles?
So at any given time, there's at least 9 beat officers. We have 9 beats throughout the city. That's from Point Richmond, water area, all the way through Carriage Hills, which is where I live. So 9 beat officers across the city at any given time.
And how many substations?
Well, there's substations, there's just nobody in them.
Yeah. or they're parked, right?
Yeah.
Do we have any other questions? Now's your time. No? Really? Okay. Well, I guess I want to thank you for coming to our neighborhood council meeting, and hopefully we'll see you more often. And next time we'll have a beat officer. So.
Sorry you don't have a beat officer tonight, and it's...
Well, that's another question, is what really happens when one beat officer is sick? Do you end up with 8 beats, or?
No, so what happens is if an officer calls in sick, then so day shift gets off at 5 o'clock. There's a little bit of time when there's overlap only on the weekdays, Monday through Thursday, where swing shift comes in at 3 o'clock, and they stay till 1 o'clock in the morning. So right now it's just one swing shift officer on the beat, but if somebody calls in sick and we don't have any other officer willing to come in, then we hold the beat officer from the day shift until the graveyard officers come on at 9 o'clock.
It's called mandatory overtime.
Mandatory overtime. We've been in a mandatory overtime situation for the last close to 5 years. It fluctuates how many shifts officers have to take per month. Right now, they're at 2 to 3 shifts per month that they have to sign up for mandatory overtime.
So, as the chief said, they're hiring all kinds of positions. So, if you have family members, be sure to say hello to the chief.
Yes.
Well, thank you.
If you're serious about that, I have a little coin that I carry in my pocket that you can scan the QR code that takes you to our hiring page.
How cool is that?
And I'm sure bilingual officers are more than welcome.
Yes, bilingual officers get an extra pay. So there's incentives for bilingual officers. We were able to hire quite a few bilingual officers, and a lot of them from our community over the last 2 years.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your presentation. Greatly appreciate it.
On Groom and Shane and to the speed. Yeah.
Is what?
Speed. I see they have speed bumps on Shane.
There's the chief.
Oh,
Hang on, chief.
See, I should have got out the door and looked at
Also, I was talking about the speed. There's speed bumps on Shane, and I walk all the time, but on Groom and Shane and Hurlaway down to Birmingham, it's just notorious. And my daughter lives on Groom, and her car was hit parked in front of the house. So how could speed bumps? Because it helps on Shane. It should be able to help also on Groom.
So in order to get speed bumps in your neighborhood, there's a petition you have to fill out through Public Works. So if you go onto the City of Richmond website and you go to the Public Works, there's a paper that you have to have the people in the neighborhood sign saying, yes, we want speed bumps. That's how it happened here. And then Public Works does an assessment of the street to make sure that it's not going to interfere with emergency response like fire trucks and stuff like that. They do a full assessment, and then if they determine, yes, we should put speed bumps on that street, then they do it. So we really don't have too much to do with the speed bumps, but that's the way you get it done.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other questions before the chief hits the door? Oh, have a seat.
Yes, since they put in that new since they put in that new way to get onto the freeway off El Portel Drive and San Pablo Dam Road, you know where that is?
The new what?
To get onto the freeway, the ramp, on-ramp from, what is that street? El Portel Drive and San Pablo Dam Road?
Oh, yes.
Okay, they do donuts there. Who do we call? I call the sheriff's office because
It's the city of San Pablo, isn't it? I think that's the city of San Pablo.
That's the whole thing, but we're in Richmond, so it's like a crossover. Okay, so I had called the sheriff's department, I called Richmond, and I'm like, can they do something? Because they start like at 2 o'clock in the morning, okay? And just make donuts right there, so people coming off the freeway, they can't get off, because they've got the block. So who do we talk to besides, I guess, me? I call everybody, okay? Because it's like they wake me up, and I'm like, okay, enough of this. So that's one thing. And the other thing is they speed up our street. It's called Willard Drive.
Yes.
They're flying up that street. We have to be careful coming out of our driveways because they fly up the hill. So is that through the city of Richmond? The police department?
That
or
is
the mayor's
police
office?
department.
Who do we talk to?
You send me an email with the location that you're talking about. We
Okay.
have one traffic officer now, so we
Okay.
can send them and,
Okay.
to do random radar enforcement in the
Okay.
area.
Because today, when we come
There's
into
a
the
lot of
meeting
streets
today,
though in the city, so you
yeah,
can
we had three. There were three of them
come
that couldn't
on there
stop.
one day.
Right. Our street. So that's why we're here, because we want to talk about our street.
So
Okay.
going back to the donuts at the
Yes.
intersection though,
Yes.
whatever dispatch center you call it, and give them the location. If it's not Richmond,
Okay.
they should be able to transfer that call to
Okay.
the appropriate agency. I just don't know who's responsible for that particular intersection.
Before the next question, could you tell them what they actually do when somebody's caught doing donuts?
So if we catch people doing donuts, then we seize their car for 30 days. We issue a citation and we seize the vehicle for 30 days. Just 30 days.
The location she was describing, you actually got County, Richmond, San Pablo, all meeting in the same, pretty much the same place. So it depends upon where they were. It might have actually been in Richmond.
So I think coming off the off-ramp, she said the new on-ramp. So that's
the
coming,
on and off. You can go.
right, off, coming off, like if you get on,
80?
Yeah.
right now, 80,
Yeah.
80
Okay. Right.
from here, and you get off on the very next exit.
Yeah.
I think when you get off, that's San Pablo or County. The other side of the freeway ramp is Richmond.
It is Richmond, but we all know Rollingwood is county,
Right.
and El Portel itself is San Pablo.
So it's probably CHP.
Yeah.
I would say it's probably CHP.
Ain't my job, huh?
Yeah. But whoever you call, they should be able to look at the map and transfer you to the appropriate agency.
I've been trying to attend some of the meetings for the development of Hilltop Mall here. And the last meeting I went to, they kind of announced that there was going to be a lot of housing built over there. And one of the concerns brought up was infrastructure and whether or not, the city of Richmond can, with schools and traffic, whatever, can handle that much housing. I'm just wondering if they've been in contact with the Richmond Police Department to coordinate how you guys can support that much more, highly dense populated, housing in that area.
This is the first I'm hearing that it's housing. Last I think I read, it was supposed to be some type of business that did cars that went around a ramp or something.
So I've been meeting with them for 2 years, bi-monthly and monthly. And the last conversation is that the city of Richmond has all the information they need to move forward with a plan. Right, exactly, John. With a plan, And that plan, last I was told, was 1,575 units, housing units, and then some retail,
That's a lot.
and some commercial. So that's a great point, because I've often wondered that myself. If you're going to grow a city, shouldn't you grow the infrastructure and the police department and the fire
So they
department?
do. If it gets to that point, there is a process where we're brought in to do an assessment of what something like that, like how many more officers we might need, because that's all built into the plan to develop. So I guess we're just not at that point yet.
Does anybody know how many beat officers there are per population? I mean, is there one beat officer per 12,000 people?
No, I don't have that number. I do know that we're way under what the
Right.
what the national standard is. But I looked it up last year sometime, and I don't remember what that is.
It would be an interesting thing to look up. Thank you.
I see that it's a fence around there where Sears used to be.
It's going to be Glideways. It's putting up a fence up there. They're an autonomous driving company. They're going to be programming their driverless cars.
Yeah, that's the last I heard it was going to be.
Yeah, that's exactly what it's going to be. It's called Glideways, and they're going to be programming their cars for the contract is for up to 3 years, unless Prologis decides that they're going to. We're talking about taking the mall down in 2025, possibly demolishing it, but they're exploring everything that they need to do. There's a lot before they can take it down.
It's really sad. So I grew up around here. I grew up in San Pablo, and so I remember going to the mall as a kid, taking ice skating lessons. There was an ice skating rink at the mall. Shopping there for back to school and all of that. So it's really sad to see it sitting undeveloped.
A lot of people met their spouses there.
I didn't meet my spouse there, but I used to hang out.
You got another question here? So you should have hit the door.
I know.
It's more related to the mall. I mean, I just want to ask, was taking on effect 24-hour fitness and Walmart?
Walmart has
What's
a
existing up there?
Walmart has a 7-year lease, so
70?
yeah, they're going to have to buy them out or relocate them or rebuild it. And then I think 24-hour fitness has a lease. But Walmart is the sticking point. So, and it's
So the housing units are coming after 70 years?
no, they're going to. Prologis and Walmart have a history. They've been business associates for a long time, just like Prologis has built warehousing for Amazon for a long, long time. And that was the last thing we wanted, was an Amazon warehouse up there covering the whole property. That's why we fought so hard against it. But apparently the city's moving in the right direction. There's finally traction. So they will be bringing the project to the city council for their approval, and if I had to make a bet, I don't know if it'll get approved. So it may be like that for a decade or two. Who knows?
That includes Firestone too?
Firestone's gone. Got another question back here for a comment.
Good evening, Chief, and Hilltop Community. My name is Ahmad Anderson. I'm up here from Laurel Park, and that's South 49th and Cutting, in that area there. But I've lived in Richmond for all my life, 65 years this February. And all the things that you echo are the same things that we echo in Laurel Park, so I want to let you all know that. But the question from you, Chief, is there a similar is it a similar conversation around the concern for public safety at the other neighborhood councils that you go throughout the city?
Pretty much, almost every neighborhood council, there's the same issues: the speeding vehicles, the quality. I talked about quality of life issues in my presentation earlier, and the same concerns. People are concerned about abandoned vehicles in front of their house, or dope dealing in neighboring houses, and this speeding vehicles, prostitution down on 23rd Street, 24th Street, 25th Street, sideshow activity. So, yes, throughout the city.
And I asked that as someone who just ran for city council here in District 5, I've been sort of trolling the neighborhood councils because I thought I was speaking in an echo chamber to myself. But it is good, and we're glad that you're here. And I'll say to you all, the message is the same. It's not just one size fits all, but it is the concern of the city. So thank you.
Thank you. So that means you're going to stick around for another couple of years.
Now, somebody might think of another question.
Well, any other last questions before our chief leaves? Okay. Thank you.